get this started. Hi, I'm Sailor Jupiter, Lita, and I am Sailor Venus, Mina here. And today we're gonna talk about this one thing that happened, but it didn't happen. Alright, so we're gonna talk about, once again, we're gonna talk about the hate that the English Sailor Moon got. And I'm not talking about Viz. When I'm referring to the English, I am referring to the Deke and Pioneer take on Sailor Moon, but not on Deke's take. Because I have some belief that that the Viz one did not seem to get as much hate, or was it just nitpicking? It's hard to tell what it was. And we could always make films on this. And still, this day, we'll still never truly, know why it was what it was. But we do have some guesses. Okay, go back to 1995 YL. Unless you were living in Japan, or unless you knew someone who is in Japan, or you were there, unless that was the only way, unless you were one of the folks that could afford to have a home reckoner at the time, which a lot of folks could not, because at the time, having a home reckoner, one's own reckoner, was worth more. I mean, a reckoner wasn't worth as much as a house or a far cart was, or a wagon was, but at the same time, it was up there. So you're either in one of the many English speaking lands, pick whatever land it is that speaks English as a first speech. If you were in Canada or Canland, you would have gotten it in August. If you were in the Ondet Irks, you would have gotten it in September. And keep in mind, you don't have the home interweb at the time. You don't have a home reckoner, so there's no way for you to look up to see what this Sailor Moon show is, or this English one was taken from. So getting irked and mad over it back then would have been dumb. Okay, you would have watched it on either WB or UPN or WGN or Fox or ABC or CBS or NBC, or maybe you would have saw it on Cartoon. Or maybe you got YTV and you saw it there. Now, keep in mind that you don't have the interweb at this time. You don't have the home reckoner at the time, so all you know about Sailor Moon is what Deke told you about before you watched it, and what someone else told you. Now, by the end of the 1999, early 2000, by the end of the 1990s and maybe early 20s, what do you want to call it, home reckoners, any interweb started to come into the home. Some folks could then afford it. They didn't have to borrow any gold. They might have to put on their thanks card. Their thanks sheet. I don't know. Then you start looking up Sailor Moon, and then that's when you learn where Sailor Moon came from. All the offshoots of it. And then you start getting mad and irked at it. Right. Okay, Sarah Jupiter, I'm going somewhere with this. Alright, Sarah Venus, you go on. Then you start bitching about the boy speech. About the show players. You start bitching about, I don't know, strike and attack, strike and hit names being shifted, stead names being shifted, borrowed names being shifted for other borrowed names. You start nitpicking. Next thing you know, you hate every single thing about the Deke and Pioneer one. Why? Who knows? And then you start reading, then you go to the sub one. You go to the written one. And then after that, you start having this whole hate for the whole English one, the Deke one, and the Pioneer one. You take all the cleaning, You take all the name shifts, all the stead name shifts, all the strike name shifts. You take everything to heart. When truly you shouldn't have, when truly was not needed to be taken to heart, but some of you take it to heart. And some of you still hate it to this day. Why? Who knows? Was it that you got mad that it was not, you get mad at it since it was cleaned or shifted from what it was when it first started over in Japan? Do you have some belief that all the other speech offshoots of it were not like yours? I don't know where the hatred comes from. I truly do not know. The show playing, or the speaking show playing, I thought was good. The names being shifted was a good thing. It did not irk me. Strike names being shifted, stead names being shifted, and all that stuff did not irk me at all. So I don't know where you folks got mad at it, or irked at it, or wretched at it. Then you start coming up with all these beliefs over why it was a bad show. Oh, it was never what Naoko Takaguchi meant and wanted it. Oh, it was never what Toei wanted it to be. So then, years later, Viz starts working on all the Sailor Moon, all the 5 followings, not just the four followings like Deacon Pioneer did. Were you happy with that one? No. My belief is you bitched about that one too. You had whatever. Then you start going around saying you liked the Viz one because it had everything came the way it was except for the spoken speech. So I don't understand where this hatred of Deacon Pioneer Sailor Moon came from. You come up with all kind of sad sagas and tales about why it was bad and your thought and belief of why it was bad. And it gets even worse. Yeah, Sailor Venus, you're right. It gets worse because then you start having thoughts and beliefs about anyone who likes that kind of that Sailor Moon. You start going around and telling folks, or at least on the interweb, that if anyone who likes Deke or Pioneer's take on Sailor Moon's not a true Sailor Moon follower. You tell them if they call Serena Usagi, you tell everyone if they call her Serena, not Usagi, then you get irked over it. You bitch about it if it's in your own speech, because you think for some grounds you're lazy if you only speak one speech, which is kind of dumb. But what you do is you go around and say everybody else is too lazy to speak another speech, and that's why it was put in your speech. You start bitching about all the cleaning that was done by Deacon Pioneer. Next thing you know, you're bitching about the show playing about the ones who spoke the South Hoods. Then you start bitching about strike names being shifted, stead names being shifted. You start bitching about how those Japanese borrowed names were then shifted to Greek and Latin borrowed names, or Greek and Roman borrowed names. You start bitching about all kinds of things. So where does it end? You don't know. And to this day, I truly don't know where the hate came from. I just got my thought and belief over where all this came from like you do. But at the end of the day, I don't know where it came from. And I'm not here to tell you what kind of Sailor Moon to like. If you like the Toei one where it's all written, good for you. If you like the one that Viz did, good for you too. I like that one too. But I also like the Deacon Pioneer one as well. So at the end of the day, I don't know where the hatred came from. I do not know. Almost all the Sailor Moon followers who have been followers of Sailor Moon have at least been followers since 1995 YL. If anyone tells everyone they saw it going back to 1992 YL, either they're shitting you, or somehow they got some film from some other land back then. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I don't know where the hate came from. You know? I truly don't know where the hate came from. And this day, it's always going to be one of those unknowns. Yeah, you're right about that, Sailor Jupiter. For in this film, it's going to be a fought in belief to who you talk to. Because everyone's going to have a unlike saga, unlike tale. They're going to have a unlike fought in belief about how they came to either like it or not like it. So it's going to be unlike for whoever you talk to. But at the end of the day, the hatred of it, seeking wrong with it, and the things that you get mad and irked over are truly sad. Well, that's about it. There's really nothing else we can say about it. Every time we make a film about it, we don't get any more close to an answer than we did the first time we made a film on it. But it's always going to be something we're going to talk about, from time to time. So that's it. I'm Sailor Jupiter, Lita, and I'm Sailor Venus, Mina. Hope you like this film.